And we're back. All right. You know what it is? Listeners out there, if you do not have scars on your ankles, you did not live. You did not live.
You weren't student, right?
Every song I've ever learned, I've just learned patterns with my fingers, pause. That I've learned like where to place things and how to do it, right?
Ali, I'm gonna out there.
No. So what skills? Oh, wait, let me start again.
Wow.
Since first year to third year, what's been like the highlight?
Getting Skin for All out there and just seeing the response of Skin for All from the university, like they just blew me away with their support. This is for you. This is about you. I will take on feedback. This is all about your experience with opportunities.
If I had looked at that website at that time, I would have known more of what to ask and I would have felt better instead of me having to go blind and do my own research. So
this is why there are high levels of diabetes, there are high levels of heart disease, there are high levels of cardiovascular issues amongst South Asian communities. A cohort of brown women were actually used as test subjects for radioactive chapatis that were given to them by medical professionals. No consent was given. And then later on down the line, we realized this was a really unethical study that was carried out in the UK. But I think what we need to do is not rewrite history, address history, think what are the gaps here, what are the consequences of history, and then make our own change.
Speaking of the future, what does the future look like for you?
I like helping others, and I think if other people are interested in doing similar opportunities to me, I'd be, I'm more than flattered. That's like the highest form of flattery. So I guess trying to help them is my main aim.
Is dermatology the specialty you want to go into?
No.
What? Welcome back to a new episode on Jollof N Biryani, where we serve ideas, so take a seat. Today we are continuing our series of careers in education and growing up black and brown, where we will be talking about diversity as a medical student.
Joining us today, we have Naabil, a medical student, podcaster, activist, public speaker, and figurehead for young women in the medical field, creating opportunities and awareness about BAME women in industry. So, could you tell us a bit about yourself, like your ethnic background?
Yes, of course. So first of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Thank you for coming.
Hi, I'm Naabil. I am born and brought up in South London, and originally I'm from Kenya and Pakistan. So my dad's Pakistani and my mom's Kenyan, and that's just me, really.
So what was it like moving from London to Exeter?
I would say it was a huge shift in more ways than one. So I think one of the first biggest shifts was, I guess, geography. Like I'm from South London. It's quite an urban area. It's quite industrialized, quite grey, I would say. I'm used to it because obviously I've grown up there my whole life, but it's really nice. And then you move to Exeter and it's greenery. It's constantly surrounded by hills. The weather is a lot nicer. So that was the one big shift. And I think that was a shift in the positive direction where it was like, really nice and green. And I thought it was like a good breath of fresh air, transitioning from this is my, I guess, school life. Now I'm going to my uni life, and it was just a nice place to start. I would say, though, that there were some downfalls from moving from South London to Exeter. One was the culture shift. So as we know, London is just like a mixing pot of so many different types of communities, different people. So then moving to Exeter was a huge shift where you basically just have like really big homogenous groups. And I think that was one of the things I had to get my head around, especially in first year, because it was also the first time I was moving out of my home, and it was first time at university. So having to actually navigate, trying to find my community and trying to find, I guess, my sense of belonging within that area that I wasn't used to was a huge shift as well. So I think, there were positives and negatives from moving from South London to Exeter, but I think in the long term it was the right decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can imagine, because London is all just glass. Like you were saying, it's grey. It's just glass buildings and grey stuff, and they're always building stuff, whereas Exeter is a lot greener.
Yeah.
Makes you feel more alive, doesn't it?
It does, but I think with London as well, it gives you that other sense of, I guess, feeling alive, because it's a city, it's a cultural hub, you've got so many communities you interact with. Whereas with Exeter, it can be quite quiet. It's very villagey type of vibes, but more like glorified village because it's a bit bigger than that. But yeah, it's a nice area, but I think London will always be my home.
So I think same here. So I guess what inspired you to do a degree in medicine?
I think, again, multiple reasons really. I think one of the biggest ones was, I think it's one of those amazing careers that you can go into where you're constantly a help to people, you're constantly in demand, you're constantly there to support people. You know, you have the skills, you have the knowledge in order to alleviate someone from a really tough time. And I think that's one of the best things about medicine, you know. I think another thing as well is just you constantly learn, like, you know, and this sounds like an interview, like for university, but, you know, going into medicine means that you never stagnate when it comes to your learning. You learn something new every day. I think since starting in first year, I've learned something new almost every day. And I think that's really exciting. And medicine is always changing as well, you know, like it's not one of those degrees where this is the done thing and this is how you continue it as the years continue, as new generations come in to the workforce. It's very much changing, it's very much evolving, it's very much developing with response to, you know, what society demands. And I think, I mean, we'll get onto this later, but with things like diversity in medicine, it's one of those spaces where it could have really, really big, you know, significant impacts on how people are treated overall, how their health is treated, how the overall health of the country, how the overall health of the world is perceived, you know? So I think it's just one of those degrees that has just such a huge impact in the long term, and I just really wanted to get behind it.
Yeah. I mean, now your work makes a lot of sense. Like, it was making sense before, but now it makes even more sense. The way you speak about medicine and the fact that you want to use it to truly change the world and truly lead change, it makes sense. The things we're going to speak about in a little bit, after that, it will make sense.
Because the way you describe medicine isn't the way that I think most people describe medicine. You know what I mean? I feel like they just see it as like, oh, okay, I'm helping people. Yeah. Like, oh, you're sick. Okay, let me fix that.
You passed the interview. Now you've gotten into Jollof N Biryani University.
I love it. I'm honoured, guys. You know, I just didn't you drop out at this point. I think this is the peak. You know, Jollof N Biryani University.
It's coming soon. When did you first realise you wanted to do medicine? What were the first steps you took?
Yeah, I think the first moment I decided I wanted to do medicine was actually when, I mean, this is quite a sad situation, but my mum had a heart attack when I was a few years ago, and she's okay now, so it's all good. She's okay now. But I think being in that ambulance, actually going from that journey from, you know, when we'd noticed symptoms, going into the ambulance, going to the hospital, seeing the doctor, seeing how quickly they reacted, and just seeing how well they treated my mum, just really inspired me. And I think I was kind of teetering on the edge of, do I want to do medicine? Do I want to do something else? I knew I wanted to do something that would help people and that would make a positive impact on, you know, society. And for me, I mean, obviously this isn't for everyone, but the financial element of jobs hasn't really been a big motivator for me. Even if I wasn't going to do medicine, I think finance was very much not at the forefront of my mind when picking what career I wanted to go down. So with medicine, it was very much a case of I just saw how amazing those doctors were and those nurses were and the MDT was in that hospital. So then I did some work experience at Kingston Hospital for a bit, and then just seeing them and seeing how, you know, I don't know how to describe it without like fangirling a bit too much, but just seeing how satisfying it is having someone come into the hospital. You have all of these systems in place, you have all of these dynamics in place, you have all of these structures in place in order to alleviate their pain, alleviate their distress, and then hopefully for the most part they leave better off. I think it's just a really satisfying career to be in. So I think that's kind of what solidified my, I guess, resolve to do medicine in the long term. But yeah.
Well, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear about it.
No, it's all right.
But I think obviously it was a life-changing experience for you
Yeah.
in more ways than one.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
Yeah, it's incredible. So when you got into medicine, did you ever feel different to others? Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I think when I first got that email saying that I had gotten into medical school at Exeter, it was a quite strange feeling I had, because initially before I got the offer, I thought I would feel just completely elated. I felt like I would be on top of the world. But then I sat back and I just thought, okay, this is a new place. This is a new university. This is just a new side of the country. How am I going to fit in, basically? I'm going to have to start from scratch because, I mean, as probably a lot of people in the audience know, joining university and just joining a new place in general, even if it's for a job or something, it's just a whole new experience. You know, you have to start from scratch again, especially when you're moving from London to Exeter, which is just another side of the country.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was very much a case of I need to find my community. I need to find people who I have interests with. And I think when I first started at Exeter, I didn't find that, you know, I didn't find that initially. And I think it was hard. It was challenging. Obviously, I'm not going to paint Exeter with rose-tinted glasses, but I think it took a while for me to kind of find my tribe, as it were, or like just community. And I think once I did, it wasn't necessarily people in Exeter, which is quite funny because it was other people from other universities who were doing similar things to me, who had similar values to me, who had similar motivations for what they wanted to do in medicine as me. So I think that journey has just grown, and I guess my community has just built and built as the years have progressed. And it's led me to amazing podcasts like you guys in London, which I never thought I'd be on. So
You're
I think
gonna make me blush.
I'm taking it back.
but yeah, I think that's kind of my initial thoughts about like finding my community, finding my sense of belonging when first entering Exeter. Yeah.
But you feel like overall the process got a lot more smooth, a lot more
Yeah.
and not just because of Exeter, but because of the medical community overall. Okay.
Definitely, yeah.
So I'm sure you've encountered some very unique people and pathways. Who would you say is the most unorthodox person you've met in terms of how they've gotten into medicine?
Well, I do know someone who he basically had completed every side quest imaginable, basically, to get into medicine. Like, there was one point he was like a pilot, and then he was a paramedic, and then he was a teacher, and then he worked in the Navy, and I was like, what is happening? Like, how did you get here? I don't know if I'd consider that unorthodox, but I thought that was very unique, and I think just it kind of reminded me of like Barbie with all of her different jobs, where it was like, it was crazy because he'd just done so many different jobs, and then he was like, every time it would just solidify how much I wanted to do medicine, and I thought that was super inspiring. So I think it was kind of, him playing the field and playing and experimenting with different career options that seemed to me to be the most unique, because I think a lot of people go straight from like sixth form to medical school, or they have a gap year, or they do biomed or stuff like that before medicine. So I think he was the most, I guess, interesting case I've seen of in terms of a student going into medicine. And yeah, he was just super inspiring.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I just know his personal statement was mad.
Yeah, no, fully though. Like his personal statement must have been like as big as like, I don't know, the Bible or something.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
He's probably rapping his head like, oh, what should I actually write? He felt so limited by the word count.
No, fully. Yeah. It's crazy stuff.
I guess I have it's a bit of an unorthodox question. It's not even in the script, but I just have to ask. Going from London to Exeter, what's the transport system like there? Because I can't live without TfL.
Don't even. I'm a TfL supporter till the day I die.
Same.
The NHS and TfL are the two. Like I will support them till the day I die. Like,
Yeah.
oh my god, going to Exeter was a pain. Their transport is interesting. I'm not gonna slag off their transport too much in case someone is watching and like works for Exeter Transport.
Oh no.
Their trains are fine. Like they're fine, but you have so many delays, and like the buses never turn up. You basically either have to walk everywhere, or you have to have a car, or you have to have just really nice friends who will just cart you around. And it's just very below my expectations of what public transport should be like.
How does bike do?
Bike, yeah, you can bike there as well.
Must be the way.
Yeah. 'Cause I
You
remember,
can scoot there. I feel like scooting would be a lot more efficient than taking the bus in
Like a
Exeter.
normal scooter or an electric scooter?
A normal scooter,
Oh,
honestly.
okay.
Honestly.
I love scooters, but when they hit your ankle, I'm
Oh,
getting flashbacks.
Don't even.
Oh, the point is when you hit that one chip and you just fall over.
Oh yeah, that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember my sister used to have a scooter. Like, she would walk around the house, like, she'd run around the house with the scooter, and just, that metal bit at the bottom of scooters?
Yeah,
they
well,
just,
the bit that twists on.
oh my god, like, the amount of, like, grazes I had on my ankle because she's just a menace. But
Yeah.
honestly.
I can't lie, listeners out there, if you do not have scars on your ankles, you did not live. You did not live.
You weren't scooting, right?
You weren't doing right.
I guess since your first year in your degree to now, because you're third year, right?
Yeah.
Since first year to third year, what's been like the highlight? What's been like the best moments that you've really enjoyed?
Ooh, I think there have been a few really good moments from first year to third year. I think one of them was, I'm trying to think. One of them was, I think, actually realising that, I don't know, I could establish myself in the university and I could establish my name in the university. And that was quite recent, really. So it wasn't like I had noticed it from year one. But I think getting Skin for All out there and just seeing the response of Skin for All from the university, like the support I got from my peers who I may previously haven't considered good friends, now I really do. They just blew me away with their support, and I think that was one of the peaks. It wasn't necessarily an academic thing that I'm thinking about, but I think just the rallying of support from the medical community in response to Skin for All was amazing. And I think that was just one of the big things that made me think, Exeter is a university for me, and I really feel like I belong here now. I think another really big moment was also, I think this sounds weird, but when I first started placement and I actually got a positive response from some of the doctors, and I just thought, I feel like I'm meant to be here, Obviously you'll have your peaks and your lows of placement and medical school in general, but I think actually getting to that conclusion on your own of, I belong here, that imposter syndrome seems to be dying down a bit. Obviously that imposter syndrome was quite big in year one because it was a new place, new degree, it's a very hard degree. Having that continue and becoming a lot more confident in yourself as well, I think it wasn't a specific time period or it wasn't a specific event. I think it was just something I'd grown, or I developed as the years continued. So yeah, I think that was probably one of the biggest high points. That got really deep really quickly.
No, it's good. You're giving us a lot of information in detail.
Yeah, you sort of found your voice, you found your calling, which is really good, and you found your community.
Yeah.
Because whenever you start these projects, whenever you do these things, everyone will support. Everyone will be like, yeah, she's doing it. But are they actually going to support you when you need them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the recent moments that happened, she's probably going to watch this, was one of my friends. She was doing a teach on pulmonary fibrosis, and she had actually included Skin for All in her teaching material because she was like, we need to have more material which talks about black and brown skin and how the dermatological manifestations of something like pulmonary fibrosis, liver cirrhosis, stuff like that actually present. And I was like, she didn't ask me or anything. She was just like, this is just something you need to check out. And I was like, oh my God. It was just crazy. She supported me without any condition behind it or anything like that, which I thought was really heartwarming. So,
yeah.
Wow.
It's really good.
People actually sign your work now.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I guess in comparison to these joyous moments, finding your community, finding your voice, what have been some sort of the low points, the unexpected challenges that perhaps a sixth former out there, or even an adult who wants to go back into education, go to medical school, the things that they don't know, the unexpected challenges?
Yeah. I think there are different challenges for different things you kind of pursue in university. I think university itself has its challenges where, like I said, it's a new place, new community. You might not find it, you might find it. It's very much hit or miss. I think sometimes it'd be quite isolating if you don't enjoy the same things as other people enjoy. So I think trying to find people who are quite similar, but then finding that balance between, you really want to have fun, but also you want to find a community that shares the same values as you and shares the same, spare time with you. It's hard, and I think it takes time, and it takes trial and error as well, you won't find your lifelong friends, or you won't find your friendship group on the first try,
Yeah.
In Freshers Week, you're not going to be friends with everyone you met in Freshers Week. I'm not going to be friends with Billy, who I waved at in TP on a Thursday afternoon, I think it's those people you kind of grow with, and it's those people you, also face challenges with as well, medicine's a really hard degree itself, and I'm sure other degrees obviously just as difficult, but speaking from experience, when you're crying over a lecture at 1 a.m. and you've got your friend in the library with you, it's a bonding moment,
You definitely had to go through the motions, don't you?
You do, you just have to find you have to find the rainbow in the rain, So I think another
saying. I've never heard that before. That's a great saying.
You're not new things.
Yeah.
For me at least, I don't know.
No, I've never heard that one before. Yeah.
It's just finding that silver lining, really. And I think another challenge is also what we were talking about with projects, student-led projects as well. If you don't have people who are potentially working it with you, for me, for a lot of the time, it's just been me on my own. It's quite isolating. I mean, I have said that, the medical community have rallied around me, especially around Skin for All. But, starting it off, actually making the website itself, that was only once the website had been established. I think making the website itself, doing the research, attending these lectures, talking to these people, I think sometimes it can be quite isolating. And to that, I would say, just try and find your community, even if it's not in your immediate space, branch out, even go on LinkedIn, stuff like that. So, I think those were some of the biggest challenges I think I faced. in Exeter so far. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
So you said so far. We'll
We'll see what happens. We don't know what the side quests will go down, but we'll see.
You know, it's crazy. Yeah, honestly, the people you meet in first year.
Yeah.
Shout out to the ones that I never saw again.
Literally, there's some people since freshers, I've never seen them again.
No, I believe
There
it.
was one guy who was in my course, and we were in first year, and he came for like the first 2 lectures. And bear in mind, he was still there towards the end of that first year, but he dropped out.
Yeah.
But anyway, towards the end of that first year, he just stayed in halls all the time. He was just there drinking and stuff. And like, the only time you'll see him is if it's to go to like a motive or something. And like, I had to know. I don't know what was up with that guy. Like, I'll just randomly see him at the SU. Like, I'll just be there like having lunch, and he would just be at the SU, but he's not doing anything else. I don't know, man.
It's always this, like, in an exam or something, it's like, you're like, where have you been? I thought you died. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I've not seen you in years. Like, it's...
The commuters, like,
Yeah.
the commuters
The
just stay at home.
You know, every exam I've been to, I've always seen at least 5 new people.
Yeah, I feel like
Always.
are they recruiting more people as each exam
Yeah.
goes? Like, I don't trust... Like, we did not have this many people in first year, you know?
Yeah.
These new side characters just popping up.
I feel like the students started taking inspiration from like sub teachers. They're like, let's get some sub students. You know?
Yeah,
We need a few more bodies to make sure to do the exam.
no. We're in, like, a simulation or something. They're all just actors, and we're on, like, the Truman Show or something. And, like, please tell me you get the reference.
No, I
Oh,
get
thank
the
God.
reference. I get the reference. It's just freaking me out.
Yeah.
We're in an episode of Black Mirror, guys. Like, this is just so
No, I don't want to think about that.
You know the
You know the
funniest
one where you
thing?
put the chip in the brain. And it's
Don't,
like,
I can't deal with Black Mirror. I'm like, no.
Black Mirror is scary.
I've never watched it. I've
Have you
seen...
not?
I've seen random episodes.
Yeah.
Oh my
You know, it's one of
God.
those ones where my sister will be watching it, and I'll just be in the background. I just end up watching
Honestly,
it. Yeah.
my sister watched it and she watched a really disturbing episode. I was like, can you turn this off? And she's like, but it says a lot about society. And like, we live in society. I know about society. I don't need to watch about it, you know? Oh my God. Yeah.
A few minutes later.
And we're back. All right.
You know what you're saying?
You know what it is? I was now thinking about everything we've spoken about before. Let me get back into the grind.
Careers in education, growing up black and brown.
Yeah.
Diversity. Medicine.
All right. So we've seen that you have like a really big online presence, especially through your speeches, like your BMA speeches and your is it Exeter Respect Festival as well.
Yes.
All those speeches, it's been really cool to like see you essentially educate the public. And I guess we were just wondering, how did you get involved in public speaking?
Really, it's just be grabbing hold of any opportunities that kind of faced me, really. So the way I got into the Exeter Respect Festival was I knew the woman who was running it through a homework club I was doing with one of my university societies for refugee children. So she had seen me there, and I think it was after a particularly difficult day of just trying to look after all these kids on my own. She just kind of pulled me aside and was like... What are you about? What are you doing? Like, what do you get up to? And then I told her, and then she was like, we would really love you to speak at the Exeter Respect Festival for International Women's Day. So that's how I got into that. With the BMA, it was very much a case of the university put forward a motion calling for the BMA Students Committee. So I just got through it that way. And then I attended the annual representatives meeting. So again, it's just trying to make the most out of any opportunities that were kind of given to me, and then just trying to make the most of that opportunity itself. Yeah.
That's amazing. I didn't know you educated refugee children as well. That's really cool.
I did, last year and the year before that. So for 2 years, it was with the Exeter Student Action for Refugees. So they had their own homework club, and I was kind of the lead for that homework club. So we had a few kids from loads of different countries go to it, and it was really a rewarding experience, and I definitely want to do it again. But year 3 is just kicking me in the butt right now, so I need to I just need to find a bit of a good work-life balance before I start committing myself to something as regular as that again.
I mean, it's off script. Or what haven't you done? That's amazing.
Thank you.
And I guess on the topic of conversation and educating people, like, how important would you say medical communication is in the world?
Oh my God, so important. I keep banging on about this whenever I talk about Skin for All as an example, where medical communication is so important to make sure that the patient-doctor dynamics or the patient healthcare dynamics are as effective and are as informative as possible. We get taught this in medical school. Communication is key for everything. If you're able to communicate a diagnosis properly, if you're able to communicate a treatment plan properly, patients are less likely to have follow-up questions because you would have ideally answered them. And it also means they have a more sound peace of mind once they finish that consultation with you. The worst thing I think you could do is go from a consultation and feel like your questions weren't answered or feel like you weren't listened to. And that's why I made something like Skin for All, where part of the website actually has questions you can ask your doctor if you feel like you have that condition. So I thought that was a really important component to add to it, because I thought, you're going into a GP anyway, that can be a really daunting experience. I remember before medical school, I used to find it really daunting. And on top of that, you may have additional barriers that stop you from effectively communicating with someone. That could be language, that could just be mental health, you could have anxiety, it could be, anything else, like anything that stops you from communicating with people around you. So having questions there and kind of having a very vague script of what you want to say to the doctor will really help you in the long term, which is why I included communication. And an interesting fact about, I guess, patient-doctor communication is a lot of complaints in the NHS do arise from a lack of communication, especially around procedures and around follow-up measures when you've been given a diagnosis. So having resources like this that not only address the issue of a lack of diversity in medicine, but also address the issue of a lack of communication skills or a lack of awareness about communication skills, I think is really imperative to make sure medicine is as accessible and as inclusive as possible to not only medics but non-medics as well. Yeah.
I mean, I can definitely appreciate and sort of relate, because I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I was diagnosed with a particular condition and I was essentially just given my medicine and told, that's it, off you go. And it was only through my own research that I better understood my condition. I was better able to put measures in place to avoid issues and put it into remission. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting how if I had looked at that website at that time, I would have known more of what to ask. I would have known more, especially because it was a skin-related condition. Yeah. I would have known so much more of what to ask. I would know so much more, and I would have felt better instead of me having to go blind and do my own research. So I guess from the perspective of a patient who needs that sort of resource, I just want to say thank you. Oh,
you're welcome.
And I guess also to add to that, I saw your speech on e-cigarettes. Yeah. I think that is one that is it's needed. Would you agree?
What?
It's needed. The speech on e-cigarettes, where you were speaking about how a lot of us don't actually know what's in there, and we're sort of just taking it. And that was a really good speech.
Yours crazy as well. Like, based on the timing of this, like they're doing the whole thing with like vapes. I know the e-cigarettes and vapes aren't quite exactly the same, but like obviously they're doing the whole thing with vapes now and they're trying to ban it, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. It's really, I think it's a really interesting case when you think about e-cigarettes and vapes, because it's become so normalized so quickly, but we don't know what's in e-cigarettes, we don't know. And there are still studies out there. People were so, I think with medicine, people are so nervous and are so scared about things we don't know about, like drugs, for example, or certain procedures, for example, and they don't want to do it. But with things like e-cigarettes, again, we were talking about this, addiction sells, and I think e-cigarettes are so addictive and they do prompt addictive behaviors. So it's very easy for people to become acclimatized to just how normalized it is in society as a whole. And we don't know what's in them, and as studies do progress, we'll figure out more. But I think for the short term, it's really important that people know we don't know what the health benefits or the harms are for e-cigarettes. We know a little bit, but we don't know all of it. And I think medical education and communication, it's really important to bridge the gap between the research world, the medical world, and then the public world. So I think as time progresses and as speeches like that one continue and more awareness is made, there'll be, I think, a shift in perceptions towards e-cigarettes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess how can others who have these same views of things like e-cigarettes and other things that we just use like without thinking about what's in them, how can another person get involved in medical communication and spread their message?
I think it's about finding your aim or finding your niche. I think if you want to get involved just in general in like medical communication, there are opportunities, but I think it would be a lot harder for you to kind of make that impact you want to make if you don't have a certain goal in mind, I think I always find that really important with any project you pursue. You need to have outcomes that you want to measure. Like, I know we talk about it at uni, like smart goals. Like, is it measurable? Is it actionable? Is it relevant? What's the timing like? I actually use that for my projects because I think that's great. You're putting something out there. You're putting an initiative out there. But what are the implications of that initiative? What do you want to get out of it, basically? So I think if anyone is interested in doing medical communication / I guess public speaking about things they're passionate about, find those communities that do focus on a specific cause that you're passionate about. For me, it's EDI, so equality, diversity, inclusion. For me, it's about skin conditions. For me, it's about, making medicine more accessible, especially within the research elements. Within those specific niches, I found my communities and I found the people that were doing it at a higher level than me. So I think that's one thing I would do, set up your network, really. And don't be too disheartened if it doesn't immediately click or you don't immediately find your network. I know it took me 2-3 years to do it. So if you don't immediately in the first year get your solid network of people you want to contact whenever you have questions, or if you want to do an opportunity, if you want to start an action, don't be too disheartened, just keep going. And then I would say just making sure you jump on every opportunity that you are given within those, within those niches. So for example, I got into the BMA because I'm really interested in medical politics and medical policy. So whilst I was at the BMA Students' Conference, they had a call out for people to represent medical students at the annual representatives meeting. So that's when I took that initiative and said, no, I want to go to that, because I think it's really important medical students have a say in what policy is like for medics as the years continue. So yeah, I guess that would be my piece of advice.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you out there, there's no excuse. No, I'm joking. Yeah, don't want it. I was gonna say there's no excuse. And I guess another way to communicate, as we're doing right now, is podcasts. Mm-hmm. So what's it been like running your own podcast, and where can the viewer or listener, I don't know if you're watching or listening or if you're doing both, where can they find your podcast as well?
My podcast, first off, is Very Junior Doctors. I do it with one of my friends. She's in my year group, and we mainly just talk about everything to do with medicine and medical school specifically. I think we talk about things like mental health, we talk about things like work-life balance, we have guests on. Occasionally we do political stuff. So when Roe v. Wade came out, I actually did my own solo episode on it and actually uncovered a lot of the implications about Roe v. Wade on American healthcare. So that was I found that a really enjoyable episode to try and put forward. So I think
it's a big one. That's a big one. Yeah.
It's a big one. Yeah, it is a big one. And I think, I guess running your own podcast, like we were discussing this obviously off camera, but like it's a journey. It's you're constantly developing, you're constantly learning. While you're interviewing someone, you're constantly learning about new things. And it's just a really rewarding experience. And I think podcasts as well give you the liberty, especially if you don't want to do video podcasts, you just want to do audio podcasts. It gives you the liberty to be comfortable whilst you're doing something that you're passionate about. So, you could just be in bed doing a podcast, or, you could just be at your desk doing a podcast in your room. So I think it's a really good endeavor for a lot of people to, I guess, get involved with if they want to talk about life or if they want to talk about their specific niche. I think podcasts are also growing quite rapidly as well. Like if we've got Spotify, we've got Apple Music, got all of those platforms where you can listen to podcasts. And I think a lot of people have found their niche in these podcasts. I mean, the first ever podcast I listened to, I've said podcast way too many times in this sentence, but the first podcast I listened to was, I'm trying to remember, it was by Ali Abdul and his brother. Because I used to love Ali Abdul. My opinions have changed, but I used to think he was brilliant.
I feel like we might feel this kind of way. We both kind of like him.
Yeah.
Do you still?
I have a picture with him on my Insta.
I mean, the book I was reading on my way here was his new book.
Oh, no.
Fair enough.
I'm joking.
Obviously.
The last episode, I tried to beef him.
Wait, wasn't that the one we said you're gonna beat him up?
You know the one that you saw recently.
Yeah,
did you not see that? I said I was gonna fight him.
Yes.
So anyway, Ali Abdul, if you're out there, listen.
No.
It's going to be a KSI Logan Paul level 5. But yeah, like I listened to his podcast first, and that really inspired me to make my own one, because the way he communicated himself and the way he articulated himself about really, I think, niche topics, like we didn't talk about them enough. There was one I distinctly remember about children's rights and essentially how they related to the medical field, and how as a medic you could get involved in children's rights, and I just thought that was amazing. And I used to listen to it on my way to sixth form, and I wanted to be that kind of person, that was the kind of content creator I wanted to be. I wanted to be someone where a student could be making their way to school and they're still stimulating their brain by listening to these resources. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess, my initial opinions about having a podcast. And I think just talking to new guests, occasionally, just even reflecting as well. It's a really good way for you to reflect on your own life as well. It sounds a little bit conceited, but it's a really good therapeutic way for you to say, this is what I've been doing in the past, and this is what I've been currently working on. What does this mean for me for the future, And listeners do like that as well. They like that honesty. So podcasts are great.
I guess it's sort of like you're saying, like it documents your journey.
Yes,
yeah, like 30
100%.
years from now, you'll look back. Yeah, kind of 30 years from now, I'm gonna look at the channel trailer. I'm just gonna be cringing.
Get the channel, and literally anything on the channel, I'm gonna look at it and be like, what? The fact that I lost the last couple of challenges.
Oh yeah.
Lost the last couple of challenges.
We've also started making like videos as well, like on different stuff, and we've had 3 challenge videos where we each get our own team against each other. He's what is it? 0-3.
Wait, are we going to? I don't know. Wait, will this come out after those videos are out?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah. I've lost every single one.
He's
of them.
0-3. And I actually don't know how you've lost every single.
You know what it is? I don't think I'm good at this. I think I should just quit.
I think you should. I'll be the new Biryani. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just sick and tired of all the guests coming on here and trying to replace me. Every single time. Oh my days! I remember when we did our photo shoot, and then literally we were filming a new episode, and then the guy who we're mates with, he's doing the photography. He sits down on my chair. I'm like, so what are you doing? I was trying to film the video. I was like, get my seat.
But I guess speaking of like the media, the teachings, the public speaking, you've built up a fan base. I mean, we're both definitely fans of yours, and we've really enjoyed your material, and we think it's really impactful and it's really important. What has been like the most memorable like interaction you've had with like a fan or like somebody who's interested in your work?
See, it's crazy if you're considering them fans, because I'm not. I'm just like, they're just people who follow me. I think, there was one time there was a first year student, obviously I won't disclose the name, but there was a first year student who came up to me on the street and was like, oh my God, are you Naabil? And I was like, yeah, I am. And I initially was like, oh my God, have I done something wrong? Like, what's going on? And she was just like, oh my God, I love your work with Skin for All. And I was just I was like, oh my God, this is making an impact. There are people out there who are looking at this work and saying, this is great, or this is really empowering, or I want to make a change myself. So that was one of the biggest moments. It wasn't, every moment with people who follow me is huge, but I think it's one of those moments where it kind of clicked. The work I'm doing has an impact, and I guess I'm proud enough to say that it is having an impact, and I'm quite confident enough to say that. So that was a really nice moment. And then I think there's another moment which was smaller, but it was just a passing comment which really made me think about, again, the impact my work potentially has had. So there was another student who contacted me saying, I really love Skin for All. I really want to make my own book about like very similar to Skin for All. And I just thought, this is brilliant. This is the way we progress as a society. I learned the stuff I learned from Skin for All from Malone McQuendy, for example, Annabelle Sowamimo, who wrote Divided. Now this guy is looking at me, and it's an honor to be seen as a form of, I guess, a role model when it comes to EDI, because he's now looking at my work and thinking, I want to do that myself, and I want to put my own personal spin on it. That's how you make change, and that's how you make sustainable change. You have that legacy in the long term, and you have that impact on future clinicians, future healthcare workers, future non-medics as well, whatever niche they go into. And they're thinking about the message you put forward, but then putting their own twist on it. And I just think that's amazing. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's really cool. So you've educated the public, and now you've motivated somebody else to go and do the same or something similar to only spread your message even further.
It's great. I really like, this sounds so like reductionist, but like I really like my life right now, because I think the work that I've been doing, it has been a lot of hard work as well. I don't want to discount any of my hard work, and I don't want to discount the hard work of other people who have really helped me with this journey as well. I'm adding you two to the list as well, because you two are equally as inspiring. Listen,
I don't know about that yet. know, I want to start my own YouTube channel. Yeah. Want to say that to us? Then maybe we'll...
But it's just, I think it's amazing. The time we live in right now, especially within the medical world, just the amount of initiatives that have been put forward, like Vasi, for example, in the last episode, or whatever episode that was, so one of the last ones, previous episodes. It's just amazing to see. And it's amazing to see everyone's unique spin on things as well. And I think, you know, he's done the dermatology series, you know, that's something that people can tune into every week. I've made a website that people can kind of just tune into whenever they want. Malone made that book that people are using in clinical practice. It's brilliant, and yeah, I'm quite blessed. Yeah.
It's really cool.
So I know obviously you've touched on it a lot, but if you had to give like a brief summary of what Skin for All is and what the main aims are, could you briefly let the camera know, or let the audience know?
So Skin for All is an educational website that's aimed towards medical students as well as members of the public, which highlights skin conditions and a lot of other aspects of medicine and how they present differently on people from ethnic minority backgrounds. I think that would be my summary.
Yeah, I mean, this is your trailer, isn't it?
Yeah, this is my trailer.
All right, that's perfect. So why do you think there's a lack of diversity in teaching material for medical students?
Oh God, I could dedicate a whole episode to this, but I think we're a product of history. Medicine is a product of history. And if we look timeline-wise at the, I guess, data cohorts or the research cohorts that have previously been used in medicine, like harkening back to the 1800s, for example, it's very homogenous. It's very much the straight white male who have been the subject of a lot of these studies. And obviously, as we know, that's not going to translate to today's day and age. We're not all straight white males, you know, we're not all a homogenous group.
You're trying to tell me I'm not a white man.
I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you.
Please do continue though, yeah, you're right. A lot of it's been tailored towards white men.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you've got BMI, for example. That is one of the initial kind of parameters we use when determining the health of a patient, as well as what kind of, I guess, how you approach that patient. You know, you could have someone with a really low BMI, really high BMI. We know what BMI is, so body mass index. And that is based on a cohort of people from, I'm trying to remember the European country it's from. I want to say Austrian. I might be incorrect. I have to double check that. But it's based on a cohort of Austrian men from, I believe, the 80s. I might be incorrect, but, you know, a long time ago. And you think about how much weighting is put on something like BMI in today's day and age, and you just think, how is this a parameter for the health of an individual? Like me, for example, I'm going to just use me as an example. According to the NHS's BMI scoring, I'm obese. And for me, I don't think I am. Everyone has a different distribution of fat around their bodies. It's dependent on lifestyle, dependent on genetics. And I mean, this is growing up black and brown. Yeah. Asians don't have the best genetics because of historical famines and stuff like that. So I think...
I remember you...
we spoke about
about
the Winston Churchill thing.
Yes, and just
so looking... the ones who survived had to have the most body fat.
Exactly. So like, looking at it from a medical perspective, historically when you had those famines, the way the body kind of reacts to it is that they put a lot of fat around the abdomen. So when they do eat, it goes straight to the abdomen. This is why there are high levels of diabetes, there are high levels of heart disease, there are high levels of cardiovascular issues amongst South Asian communities. That is why. And then you've got the cultural and social impacts of that on top of it. But
food does not help, obviously.
No, exactly.
Food doesn't help,
it does not. Exactly. So I think history, the present is a product of history, but I think what we need to do is not rewrite history, address history, think, what are the gaps here? What are the consequences of history? And then make our own change, you know? So you've got, for example, the Tuskegee syphilis trials, which were a horrible, horrible time in medical history, where you had African-American men used as guinea pigs, essentially, when injecting syphilis into them and then tracking their symptoms, and then the families being so mistreated by the medical professionals involved, you know? You look at that and you see that is why there's so much mistrust within ethnic minority communities towards the medical personnel. There is so much mistrust. Obviously, I don't want to be reductionist and say there's mistrust with every ethnic minority patient, but in communities that have had that long-standing history, it is there, it is present. I recently did an interview with the BMA magazine, The Doctor, and it's published now, so obviously this isn't like I can't say anything, but we talked about the chapati trials in Coventry in the 1960s, where a cohort of brown women were actually used as test subjects for radioactive chapatis that were given to them by medical professionals. No consent was given. Nothing about, do they actually want to be a part of this study was asked. No permission was sought. These women clearly had these chapatis, ended up suffering really bad, ended up suffering from really bad health problems, and then ended up being tested on by a lot of these researchers with no justification, nothing. And then later on down the line, we realized this was a really unethical study that was carried out in the UK. This isn't like the Caesar way in America. This was in the UK. This was recent. This was 1960s, And then you think about why there is mistrust in the community because of this. Mrs. Begum syndrome, which is a phenomenon where healthcare workers basically underestimate and undermine female South Asian women, especially from older generations, is still a huge thing, especially amongst primary care practices. So you need to think about the history. You think about what has happened in the past that has led to this. We talk about COVID-19. We talk about the mortality rates. Why are there higher mortality rates in people of color than there are with white people? Let's look at pulse oximeters. That is used as a parameter of how much oxygen is in the blood of patients. That determines how much treatment you're getting or the severity of your treatment plan. You've got people who are, especially from black communities, their oxygen levels have been overestimated. So, for example, if they had, let's say, 95% oxygen, it would register as something like 97. Obviously, that's not for all cases, but there is a marked difference in the accuracy of pulse oximeters on black individuals, which leads to higher rates of mortality because you're not treating them the same way you're treating your white counterparts. So again, we are a product of history, and I think it's really scary thinking about how much in medicine needs to be changed in order to bridge this gap and in order to reduce these inequalities like the mortality rates. So I guess that's kind of why there is a lack of representation. It's homogenous groups, it's research that's been catered towards a certain group of people. It's underrepresentation through, through mistrust. Like they're less likely, ethnic minority communities are less likely to be subjects of, uptake in studies. They're less likely to take up the vaccine, for example, because there's that mistrust. And I think that's part of the reason why there isn't a lot of representation. And then alongside that, you just have companies and you have medical conglomerates that do focus towards a single narrative and a single gaze. So, for example, the medical textbooks, so Netter's anatomy textbook, which is one of the most, fundamental. Yeah, one of the most fundamental books that a lot of medical students use has, I think, 1% of their images are of black and brown people. 1%. And then you pair that with a study that was carried out in 2018 at the University of Washington, where they asked medical students whether they thought black skin was thicker than white skin, which is a very racially prejudiced theory that was brought upon by a lot of research that happened in the past, very much similar to, the age of the syphilis trials and stuff like that. They said, yes, they do believe that black skin is thicker than white skin. How do you think that's going to translate in clinical practice once they become doctors? If they don't get that education now, thinking, this is not accurate, this information from this research needs to be critically analyzed, it needs to be reflected on, it needs to be, the distorted narrative needs to be addressed, you're going to have a future of clinicians that treat people unequally. And that's not what medicine is. Medicine is about equal competence for everyone, no matter where they come from. So I guess that's a very roundabout way of kind of saying, why is there not a lot of representation in medicine?
Well, I'm actually taken aback.
I don't know what.
I knew about obviously the ski experiments, and then obviously I think one of the most classic ones we obviously know about is all the experiments that happened during World War II, as well towards the Jewish people. But I never knew about things like the chapati.
Yes, it's quite.
That's crazy, and it's interesting because obviously I think certain countries don't really have the same level of issue because a lot of those countries have such a vast majority of people being from having the same nationality as the ethnicity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I think the issue is obviously when you're in a mega city like London, where it is so diverse, it is such a necessity. But then it's weird because the city's been like this for years, and it's only being addressed now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the importance of our generation, isn't it? It's to implement the change that we don't see.
Yeah.
We are the change makers, 100%.
Yeah.
An interesting point that you made about, there are certain countries that don't potentially have this issue. I think it's really important to think about collaboration between countries like the UK and then countries, for example, like Pakistan, who, have medical schools. They have those medical facilities. A lot of countries have medical schools, but, the resources that these medical students use will reflect the population they're serving. So I think it's really important that we collaborate with these medical schools, that they collaborate with us. So we have this arsenal of images. We don't have to have this ill representation in this day and age. We can collaborate with these medical schools. We can, we do research. We share images, obviously with consent and, all the other stuff surrounding it. We share textbooks. I think that's really, really important. And I think it's something that I really want to work towards with my work in the future. I want to reach an international stage where we talk about diversity in medicine, but not from the Eurocentric lens. We are still very much talking from a Eurocentric lens. I am very much talking from a Eurocentric lens because I was born and brought up in the UK. So I think actually having that lens shifted towards, developing nations and less developed nations as well is a really important step for the future of diversity in medicine as a global community.
Yeah, I think we are privileged that we do live in a day and age. Once again, before when we were talking about tools and it's about how we utilize them, right? This day and age when communication is so easy from one country to another.
Yeah.
I think it's up to us to bridge the gap, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. Honestly, what you're doing is amazing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess you basically answered this already, but I was going to ask what the long-term plan is to tackle the lack of diversity in teaching material.
So I guess the long-term plan, I'm kind of categorizing it in different aspects. So there's research, there's public, and then there are medical students. That's kind of how I'm categorizing what I want to do in the future with diversity in medicine. So I guess starting with the public, I want to interact with more communities, not only within the Exeter region, but within the country. I want to start actually talking to communities who have felt the impact of a lack of trust with medical personnel. As a medical student, I only have so much power over how people interact with medical personnel, but I would like to be a representation for what the future can be. So, for example, in Exeter, I'm going to be talking at, I'm going to be talking at the Mayor's Coffee Morning with a lot of people from Exeter who want to know what Skin for All is like. And I think that's a really nice example of, I'm using people who have power. So the Mayor, for example, he has a lot of power in Exeter. And I'm connecting with him and trying to get him to elevate my platform as well. And that'll be another way of reaching out to more people. I'm going to the Sidmouth Science Festival in October, I believe. And that will be a place where I interact not only with people our age, older people, really young people, really little kids as well. And then I'd have to, I guess, tackle the issue of how do I cater my communication for different age ranges as well. I think that's really important. Obviously, I don't want to be listing studies and listing data to, a 10-year-old or something, or a 5-year-old. I want to be making it as enjoyable but informative as possible for them. So I think, I guess, focusing on expanding in the community is really important. Then there's research. So I would very much like to showcase what the impact Skin for All has had on student perceptions as well as public perceptions. So I have submitted a few studies to a few conferences which have been approved, which is brilliant.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think my next, conference will be at Brighton and Sussex, where I'll be talking about Skin for All and the impact it's had. So again, just data processing and just getting that data across in the medical world would be brilliant. And then I guess finally with, I'm trying to remember the categories, medical students, that's it. Trying to reach out to the global medical community, not just the national medical community, but trying to get their ideas of what we can do to change, trying to collaborate with amazing people like Vasi, for example, not only within my own I guess, little corner of the world in Exeter, but, with London, Manchester, Nottingham, places like that. And then moving on to other countries. I mean, for example, I was interviewed by a Nigerian medical student, Ransom. So he asked me about Skin for All and the impact it's had. And I thought that was really inspiring as well, because it's gone out to places like Nigeria. And I think, like I said before, having those collaborative links with those medical schools and those students will have a really, really cool long-term impact for the movement towards diversifying medicine. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, big things to come.
Yeah, very big things to come.
So let's talk about social prescription.
Mm-hmm.
What is it and what got you involved in it?
So social prescription is a movement that was brought upon by the National Academy of Social Prescription in conjunction with the NHS's long-term plan. So it essentially uses activities in your day-to-day. So basically things like a gardening club, things like a painting class, very social activities that get people moving, get people starting a conversation with their local community as a way of treating an illness or treating a disease. So not only do we have the medical side of treating someone, I think we mentioned this earlier on, but talking about the over-medicalization of a lot of treatment surrounding patients, or we're talking about the over-medicalization of the public right now. We're very much dependent on medication and drugs. Social prescription steers away from that, and they talk about what holistic thing can we do to improve your life and improve your outcomes when it comes to medical treatment. I think it's a brilliant scheme, and I think it's a step in the right direction, I think, for the sustainability of the NHS as well. Social prescription has cut down on NHS waiting times by a significant amount, as well as the number of GP consultations that have occurred, and we know how overstressed GPs and A&Es are. So social prescription is a step in the right direction, definitely. I think more funding needs to go into it, but obviously that's another conversation in itself. In terms of how I got involved, so in first year, there was just a call out for social prescription champions, and I didn't know what that was. So I was just kind of like, okay, let me just see what this is like. So I joined it, managed to get the the championship thing for Exeter, really connected with the community that was there, and, talked about the impact of social prescription on patients' lives. Like, we always have a testimonial of this one woman who was suffering from a really debilitating chronic condition. She joined I think it was gardening club, and it just completely changed her life from there. And you see that, and you see the impact medicine can have on a patient, not just the drugs, not just the immediate, give them IV or give them a steroid or something. It's the long-term holistic impact that social prescription has on them. That's really nice to see. So then, starting from year one, I guess, I did a bunch of content creation surrounding social prescription, and that consisted of a TikTok account. I made a video that was reposted by NHS England, just like highlighting what social prescription was for medical students. And then on top of that, I went to a couple of conferences surrounding social prescription. And now in year three, hopefully by the time this episode is uploaded, this will be officially announced. But if it isn't, that's okay. I'm now the global lead for social prescription recruitment of medical students.
Wow.
So
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
amazing.
I thought I was saying congratulations.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for this opportunity, because social prescription has kind of gone from this big group of 300 students now down to 5 students in the entire country, representing the country when it comes to social prescription. And being a global lead is just honestly a dream come true. I never thought I'd get it. So I guess I'll see what I can make of it, and just see who I meet and what I can do from there. So I think it's a brilliant scheme, and I think social prescription very much links in with EDI opportunities as well, which is potentially something I want to get involved with, where you can have social groups for communities that potentially don't feel as confident in healthcare settings. If I take South Asian older women, for example, you could have a social prescription scheme, social prescription action that focuses on, bread making, or something like a conversation club. And that's just a way you are addressing the patient not only as their disease or their condition or their treatment, but as a whole patient, as a human. So yeah, I think social prescription's brilliant.
Playing devil's advocate here, why would you say that holistic care could be more important than fixed care? Some would argue doctors know best.
So I think holistic care is really important because I like thinking about the sustainability of a patient and the long-term outcomes of a patient. So we've got short-term and long-term outcomes. With medications, you've got a lot of short-term outcomes and you've got some long-term outcomes in terms of improving prognosis, in terms of improving symptoms, alleviating symptoms, improving quality of life. When you look at a patient holistically, you're not just addressing them, like I said, as the patient. You're not just addressing them as that person with Crohn's disease. You're not just addressing them as that person with acne, that person with, cancer, for example. You're addressing them as a human being, and you're creating that support network or that support bubble around them, which means if they ever feel like they can't cope with the diagnosis, if they ever feel like they're struggling, if they ever feel like they need support, there is that network in place, and it reduces I would say it reduces the level of, mental health issues that could come about, especially with chronic conditions. It could reduce the level of loneliness, especially for older communities as well. There's a big movement towards highlighting the impact of loneliness on people with Alzheimer's. If you've got social prescription groups that give them that sense of community, that give them that sense of belonging, I think you are doing a lot more as a doctor than potentially prescribing a single steroid would, or prescribing a couple of medications would. So I guess, obviously doctors have done the training, they do know a lot, but I also think they need to work with other people like they do with the MDT. They need to work with people outside of the MDT in order to make sure the patient gets the best care possible.
Okay. So I think we can see and understand now why there's a need for medication in terms of the actual drugs, but there's also a need for overall improving people's experiences in their lives by providing these extracurricular activities, which can help them be like an outlet, right?
Yes.
For like their
definitely.
stress and other things as well, right?
Definitely.
So yeah, makes sense. That's incredible. Touching on medicine, just briefly, just to sum up this career part, what were your initial beliefs of what a degree and future career in medicine would be like? And how have your views and opinions changed since then?
Ooh, it's an interesting question. I think my initial views towards medicine were, very much that over-medicalization kind of view, that over-medical lens, where it's like, give them that medication, give them that treatment, and then they leave, and you don't see the patient again. Or that patient is cured somehow. I think looking at medicine, it's so holistic now. You need to address a patient's social needs. You need to address a patient's physical needs. You need to address a patient's relationships, their long-term outcomes after they've been seen by a healthcare professional. You need to address how you communicate with them as well. Like EDI, my fight towards making medicine more diverse is because we have so many cases, and too many cases, where people just aren't being heard and aren't being seen and aren't being respected within the medical profession. And just saying, as a medical student, I don't think that's what medicine is. When I went into medicine, I went down the route of, we're helping people, we're trying to better humanity. And I still want to do that. My views haven't changed towards that. I still want to better humanity. And I want to better humanity by making it more inclusive, by making it more equal, by making it more diverse, and by making sure no one feels like they're left out in the cold when it comes to the conversations surrounding medicine and medical education. So I think that's it.
Okay.
So what skills... Oh, wait, let me start again. So, I'm just feeling... You only get a bit giggly. Yeah, I'm trying to contain it. So what skills would you say you found essential in your degree for becoming a future doctor and also in public speaking?
I think there are quite a few skills, I guess, you need to have in order to be good at public speaking, or I guess try and develop your skills at public speaking. As a medical student, I don't think I can really comment on what skills you need to be a good doctor, because I'm not one yet. But I guess I could do it from a medical student lens. I would say being resilient, so taking, kind of rolling with the punches. And that's another catchphrase you can add to the list.
No, we've had that one before.
I'll have you rolling with the punches.
Yeah,
so, just kind of taking the challenges with the triumphs as well. It's really important, not only as a medical student and as a doctor, but also as someone who wants to get involved in public communication and medical speaking. So I think I think resilience is really important, because if you kind of stagnate after you've come across your first hurdle, it means that momentum, that movement dies down, and potentially your passion dies down, and potentially all the hard work you've achieved beforehand, kind of goes to waste. And it's really tragic to see. So I think rolling with the punches, just making sure that you are as flexible and as adaptable as possible, whilst also maintaining what message you want to get across or what aim you want to achieve, is really important. I would also say being open to work with a team as well. Not everything is about you personally doing something. You need to collaborate. You need to communicate with other people in order to build your network. Something like this is perfect. Meeting new inspiring people as well, meeting people who are on their own paths and their own initiatives as well. So I think, being a people person is easier said than done, but I think developing those skills needed to be a people person, just like, trying to be a bit more approachable, trying to find those connections, things like that. I would also say being... what's the word? I'd say being confident in your own ability, but at the same time, making sure that you're not arrogant about your ability. I think it's really important to remain humble. And I think that goes without saying for everything, really. Being humble means that you're able to accept your shortcomings as well as your skills. You're able to adapt and grow as a person. You're not confining yourself to one box of the best version of yourself. You're constantly growing, you're constantly developing. And I think being humble also means that you can, it means that you can take on new ideas and new experiences and add them to your current personality, your current characteristics. I think it's really important to kind of figure out what kind of person do you want to be, Do you want to be someone who is very straight talking? Do you want to be someone who is really bubbly and open? Do you want to be someone who's very analytical and critically thinking? Obviously you don't have to confine yourself in a box, but I think as someone who really likes thinking about personal growth and really likes thinking about how I can grow in terms of my attributes and my characteristics, I think being adaptable, being reflective, being humble, and also being a good team worker is really good. I would also say on top of that, as a medical student, making sure you can take criticism on board. I guess this kind of feeds into the resilience bit, but take criticism on board not as a shortcoming or not as something that's underplaying your abilities, but as something you can grow from. I think that's really important as well. I've had recent events where I've had a bit of criticism from doctors about potentially not knowing something, but at the end of the day, that's what being a student is for. You're supposed to learn, you're supposed to grow, you're supposed to be educated, and you're supposed to, in that process of being educated, you're supposed to learn new things and make mistakes. That's how you improve. I guess those are the kind of main skills I would say. I think then you have the more, generic ones, just like, being empathetic, being a hard worker, being compassionate. But I think with those, it's all very much each to their own, I think I can't really say to someone, be empathetic, just have compassion. It's something that your own experiences and your own opportunities afford you. So, I think those would be the skills I would highlight.
Yeah. Would you say there's any unorthodox skills? Let's say there's like a particular extracurricular you did in your past that you thought it's not really related, but it kind of helps. I'll give them as a random example. I think playing the bass guitar made me better at maths. You're gonna look at it doesn't make sense. That's the thing. It doesn't make sense.
Tell you why.
No, because with bass, I'll be so real. I'm a fake bassist. I don't know notes. I don't know scales. What I do know is patterns. So every song I've ever learned, I've just learned patterns with my fingers, pause. That I've learned where to place things and how to do it, right? And so that's what helped me with maths, because maths is kind of just patterns and recognizing stuff. So is there anything unorthodox you say this definitely led into helping me?
I think sports really helped me kind of learn the importance of discipline and the importance of teamwork. So I used to be a competitive swimmer, and I used to be part of a relay team with 3 other girls, and we really had to rely on each other to kind of to support one another in our races. And I thought that was a really nice skill that I learned, that, you know, you're not in this on your own. You've got people surrounding you, you've got people supporting you, and it's just the best of how you make it, really. I'd also say maybe, like, this sounds weird, but like I think watching TV, this sounds weird, but like watching TV and kind of exposing myself to what values, I guess, are put forward in TV. Obviously, that's not the best kind of approach to go down. But when I was younger, I used to watch things like, I don't know, Winnie the Pooh and stuff like that. And that might be quite unorthodox, but I like the messages behind it, that, you know, be kind, you know, be compassionate, help others. I think those are all really important skills that seem to be undervalued in today's day and age, especially with people in authority figures as well. People in authority. So I think things like that are kind of unorthodox skills you pick up from your experiences, like growing up, interacting with different people. But and then there was also, I used to paint a lot. So I used to like do art, basically, and that kind of exercised my creative side and made me think about the bigger picture as well, you know, the process of actually creating a piece of art, what it takes, what kind of colors do I want to use, what kind of medium do I want to use. And by thinking about it, it makes me it exercises my decision-making skills as well. This sounds like an interview as well, like, oh yeah, like, what have you learned from sports about, you know, medicine? But I think, all of those things can be applied to medicine, as can it be applied to any other aspect of life as well. You know, we're constantly learning from different experiences and how they relate to one another, and we're constantly learning from different people as well, and how that impacts different aspects of our life, not just our career, not just our university degree, not just our relationships, but everything.
Yeah.
So
You're gonna have to carry this. I'll be honest. You're going to have to carry the boats.
Oh, okay. I was going to say I can move.
No.
Okay.
You carry the boats, bro.
Okay.
Do your thing.
Also, can I just say something real quick?
Just for the outro.
Off camera, right? Off camera. That's actually the best response I think we've ever had to the unorthodox question. Because every time we've ever asked it, people always like, "What do you mean by unorthodox?" Yeah, but that was the best. Like, for example, with the paint and stuff. That's probably the best answer we've ever had.
I think your anecdote probably helped as well.
Yeah. No, but I'm being dead serious though. Maths actually, base actually made me a better mathematician. Anytime I told people, they always look at me.
We're gonna get a collection of stories from you.
I'm telling you, it's the dad law. I'm literally telling you, it's the dad law.
Yeah.
Boy maths is learning patterns.
Yeah. That's boy maths. Yeah. So based on all the stuff you've said, I mean, I'm sure us and the listener are all assuming dermatology is the way you want to go, but is dermatology the specialty you want to go into?
No.
What? I never knew that. This is my first time hearing this response.
I guess.
At least on camera.
Yeah.
No, dermatology is something I don't want to get into, which is, I guess a bit surprising. Whenever somebody does ask me, what do you want to get into? They always, I guess, assume dermatology because of Skin for All. But no, I'm really interested in emergency medicine, actually. I really like that high-paced environment. I like making really quick decisions. I like, I have a bit of an attention problem, so I like having something happen, like, instantly. And I like seeing the immediate results of A&E as well. I think it's really, I guess, satisfying to see. So yeah, dermatology is not the one for me, but I do like keeping my mind open. And the whole reason I kind of did Skin for All, and I focused on equality between black and brown and white skin within medicine, is because it's a really good way of starting the conversation around diversity in medicine. You know, it's that kind of tangible thing we can see. We can physically see that there are differences. Now let's go into what differences are hidden that we don't know about in medicine and medical education. So based on that response, dermatology is not the one for me, but I obviously respect dermatologists so much, and I think working with dermatologists would be a really nice next step as well. I've had a few reviews from dermatologists about Skin for All, and they've really liked it, which is really reassuring. But I think kind of delving into the more global aspect or more holistic aspect of medicine itself is the pathway I want to follow. Wow.
So if you could start again, which I feel like this question is quite redundant, but I'll still ask it. If you could start again, would you change your career path?
Based on the responses she's been giving us, you never know.
Yeah. Actually, yeah.
Actually, yes. Yes, I'd be a lawyer. No.
This could be another plot twist.
Another plot twist. No, I wouldn't change my career path. What I would change, though, is the kind of reactions I've had to challenges that have occurred during my career so far. I think sometimes I've taken things a bit too seriously, or sometimes I've taken criticism a bit too personally, and even though they were meant there to help me grow, I kind of took them more as a personal attack, which I think is not a very productive mindset to be in, and not a very positive mindset to be in as well if you want to keep the momentum going. If you're taking every little piece of criticism, like I've said before, as kind of like a gunshot wound, you'll be out the race immediately, you know? I think another thing I would have changed was, I think the way I kind of portray myself as well. What I mean by this is from a specific experience I had when I first started Skin for All. I actually had, I'm going to say this because I think this person needs to be called out, but I got an email.
Oh no.
I got an email from a BBC, like a big BBC presenter. He's, I'm not going to say where he's from, but it's a university program which he hosts. And I got quite a aggressive response from him when I sent an email about Skin for All. And that response, I think, really kicked me in the teeth, because I just thought, oh my God, maybe people don't want this. Maybe people don't like the way I'm portraying myself. Maybe they don't like my messaging. Because one of his biggest criticisms was, oh, your messaging seems a bit like, what's the word? He didn't say it was personal enough. Which I was a bit like, well, it's a brand I'm trying to put forward. I don't want it to be too personal where it just seems like it's a random medical student contacting you, but at the same time you want to make it as unique as possible. So I kind of thought, oh wow, this is a really bad personal criticism against Skin for All. It was a disaster, it's a terrible idea. Obviously that's not the case. I think it was just a piece of criticism that I may have taken out of, I guess, context and made it a bit more personally attacky than it actually was. But yeah, I think that those are some of the things I guess I would change within my career. But other than that, I have really liked the community I've built up and, you know, the connections I've made. So I'm very privileged to say that I feel like I've been blessed so far.
Wow.
So far.
Sorry, that's what I have to say. Just wow.
Alhamdulillah.
So would you ever change or sort of alter any of the social or like medical educational content that you've produced at all? Like, is there anything that if you could, you'd go back and you might add this, you might have taken that out, you might have modified this?
That's a really interesting question, because I've been thinking about this a lot, and just about content creation in general on social media, and thinking about the fundamentals that go behind that kind of underpin social media creation. And I think looking at your audience is really, really important, and thinking about what would they kind of find interesting? What would they respond to? What would they, I guess, interact with? Because if you post something on social media that's like paragraphs of multiple slides in that carousel thing on Instagram, no one's going to read that. Obviously, that's just reading an essay. If you put it in a format that has pictures, that has short, snappy sentences, that has memorable features to it, this might seem quite obvious to a lot of people, but I only really clocked how important that was, and starting from when Skin for All was released, because I thought when I was marketing Skin for All, it went through loads of changes and alterations based on what I thought people interacted with and what people actually did interact with. So my main, I guess, initially was medical students. My main aim, my main cohort was medical students, and I thought to myself, they've been reading all day, they've been at placement, their eyes are probably tired, they're probably exhausted, they're not going to want to read an essay about Skin for All, are they? They're going to want to watch a video. They're going to want to read a couple of sentences and get the gist of something. They're going to want to look at pictures. That's how I changed my marketing for Skin for All, and I think it's very applicable to every kind of marketing and every kind of social media creation. Making sure that you know your audience and you cater your content specifically to that audience. Another example I would use is recently I actually came out with a newsletter called the Future Doctor Newsletter, and it's basically a way for medical students to kind of take on very similar opportunities to the ones I've been blessed in taking on these past few years, because I do get questions saying, how did you find this thing? So I thought I'd create that newsletter to make sure that medical opportunities were as accessible as possible for medical students. And the way I marketed that was very much along the lines of, this is for you, this is about you, I will take on feedback, this is all about your experience with opportunities and your experience with medicine. And that got a really, really good response. Like, I think over 200 students signed up to it in the first week alone. And I never thought it would reach that level, but it has, thankfully, and I think it's because I've been able to critically analyze my previous attempts at content creation and come forward with something a lot more appealing. Yeah.
Wow. So you've well, I guess the only way I can put it is you've done it all, and now you're helping others to also do it all.
I guess so. Yeah.
Incredible.
I guess I wouldn't say I've done it all, but I don't know. I like helping others, and I think if other people are interested in doing similar opportunities to me, I'd be, I'm more than flattered. That's like the highest form of flattery. So I guess trying to help them is my main aim, really.
Do you think some of that was inspired by that first year medical student who came up to you?
Ooh, yeah. I think it's inspired by all the interactions I have with people who have said they like my work, Even if it's the smallest thing, like, oh, you're that girl who has skin for all. These people are talking about it, I really value every piece of feedback I get from anything I do. I do not take it for granted. That's something I'm very fundamentally against, taking feedback for granted, taking response for granted, even if it's bad responses. Taking that for granted really will be your downfall in the long term, because you won't be able to grow, So, yeah, I guess I was inspired by people like that first year student, people like that other student who wanted to make a website, people like you guys as well, who've been complimenting me all evening. Like, it's like I feel so inspired to continue doing my work, because I want that impact to continue, and I want those responses to continue as well.
Speaking of the future, what does the future look like for you?
Oh, I guess the future is kind of determined on what I do now. And I guess for me now, I just want to make sure medical education is as equal and accessible as possible. And then by and part medicine is, As the future continues, I will hopefully one day, inshallah, become a doctor. So I want that same message to continue into clinical practice as well. And I want that same message to continue with everything I do. I want, I guess, every opportunity that I take on board, I want to make the most out of it and make it as fair and equal as possible for everyone involved. So I guess without looking at the specifics of what my future will look like, oh, I want to live in this place, I want this job. I think that's kind of my overall aim for what I want the future to be. And life is unpredictable as well. Like, I can't set a specific chart, on what I want to achieve. But I think, it's in, I mean, obviously, I'm Muslim, so I very much believe in, God's destiny. Things are pre-planned. I'm kind of just leaving it up to that and just thinking, I'm going to go with the motions, see what happens, try to make the best of it, and then I guess see what the future holds. Yeah.
You had another one of your one of the many amazing quotes you said when you said the future is determined by what I do now. These just keep coming. Yeah.
You have to listen. Comment down below which one's your favorite one.
Yeah, please. That's amazing.
Thank you.
It has been an absolute pleasure to have Naabil joining us today, giving us an insight into life as a medical student, pushing for change in the education delivered to our future doctors through her public speaking, podcasts, and incredible Skin for All. It's been amazing to learn about the highlights and the trials and the tribulations about going into medicine and advocating for change.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
So thank you so much for joining us today in the Careers in Education and Growing Up Black and Brown series, exclusively on Jollof N Biryani,
where we serve ideas, so take a seat.
Stay tuned in week to week for more content, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
And if you stayed until the end of the video, please comment inclusion.
That's great. If you love what we've been doing here at Jollof N Biryani, then follow all our socials. And if you want to further support us, then grab us a chai. It really does go a long way. The link is in the description down below. Biryani signing out.